All right, everybody. Today we're going to make red chili ground beef enchiladas, and we're starting with 1/3 cup of vegetable oil to cook down our corn tortillas. And you'll see that I have it about medium heat, and I'm only going to keep these in for a few seconds on each side. And what we really want to accomplish here to get these ready for rolling is a tortilla that's, if you can see, it has some flop to it there. It's not really hard. We don't want to cook it down to where it's crispy or hard or it'll crack. We just want to cook these for, maybe 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds on each side. Flip it over. That way they're still going to be malleable. They're going to be easy for us to add some fillings and roll them up a little bit later on. And you can use store-bought corn tortillas. You can make your own. You can get fresh masa, make your own corn tortillas, however you want to do it. The key is just making sure that when you are going to add filling, it doesn't end up breaking, which is common sometimes when using corn tortillas like this. Once you start trying to fill them up and rolling them up, they'll just break on you, and it's super frustrating. So this is a great way to cook them down just briefly. Let the grease, or rather the oil, drip off before adding it onto a plate. And off to the side, I just have a plate with a few paper towels on it that I'm laying these on. That way they can rest and some of the oil gets soaked up by the paper towel. I'm making about 6 to 8 and putting them off to the side before I use the same oil to just add the one small onion really to a pan to sweat these off. And we want to get it to the point where we can reduce some of the moisture in the water in the onions and get a good flavor going that way. I added a little bit of salt to help sweat them off before going in with our garlic a couple of minutes later. And we're just going to cook this for another minute until the garlic is aromatic and we're starting to see some translucency in the onion. And now we're going in with our ground beef. I'm going to just get this minced up well enough to where we can start mixing in the onion and garlic into the beef. This is really going to help us to build flavor by getting the onion and garlic mixed throughout, and we'll cook this down. I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning here, and what's going to happen is the meat is going to start expelling its water, and it's going to start to almost be boiled in its own liquid. And what we want to do over several minutes here, if you have the time, I do recommend adding an additional 5 to 10 minutes to really make sure that we reduce and evaporate off the water. So you can see there, it was almost just boiling in its own juices to where now you're starting to hear more of a singeing sound. And that's what we're going for. We want to hear the beef singe. We want to render the fat in the beef so that we get flavor. We want to build flavor in the dish, and you won't get that until you can evaporate off the water and you start to hear that nice sear sound going on. And so we're getting about done here. So the next step is we want to take our corn tortillas and dip them in some red chili and completely cover them in red chili. This is a step that isn't necessary for this meal to be delicious. It's just something that we will sometimes do because it really adds an extra depth of flavor and spice, quite frankly, and heat to the dish. So lovers of New Mexico red chili will understand this, that you just can't get enough of it. And so what I'm doing here is taking the red chili sauce and just incorporating it onto the corn tortillas, stacking them all together, and just letting them soak up the chili flavor before we actually go and roll them up. And granted, this is a little extra to be doing this, and I don't recommend if you're in a hurry or you're trying to get family dinner going to do this step. But if you have the time and you really want to make this something special, I highly recommend it. It is quite delicious once finished. So we're almost done here, and we'll have about 6 to 7 for 2 to 3 people. I would definitely increase that, maybe double it even if you have a large family. And here we're taking our block of Colby Jack cheese and we're just going to get this grated down. Now some people use just straight cheddar, which is perfectly fine. A good medium cheddar works really well with this dish. A Colby, in my opinion, is one of the better things to use. But it's really up to your preference. You can go with any cheese that you find delicious and you think might work well with all of the heat and the flavor of the beef. And fresh cheese is really just hard to beat. I highly recommend buying a block, grating it yourself. You'll skip having all the fillers that they put in cheese. You don't want that in your food or in your body. It's just not worth it half the time. So let's get started with rolling out our first enchilada here. We're going to add some ground beef first. And you don't want to overstuff these. It can happen quick. Trust me, you're going to want to overstuff them, but I recommend just keeping it medium stuffing and giving it just a gentle roll. You're not really being too aggressive or rough with it, because again, we don't want these corn tortillas to break. Again, let's just continue adding our filling. If you like more or less cheese, some people I've seen do this and they don't like beef at all. They just put cheese and they do a red chili cheese enchilada, and those are really good. And you can do that if for a vegetarian option on the side. You can have some beans as well in there rather than the beef. You can do it a bunch of different ways. I just happen to be a fan of ground beef, but these work excellent with a shredded chicken, shredded beef work really well. We like to do a roast on Sunday evenings, and with the leftover roast, we'll actually roll that up and make enchiladas as well. So really, it's just whatever you can find delicious and think, hey, if we can use this extra meat or make something specific for it, it's versatile. You can use a lot of different meat. For chicken, I do recommend a green chili rather than red, but that's for a different video. So we're getting very close here to being done. I am going to take one of these and just cut it in half so that I can fill the rest of my pan the way I want. And again, if you look at the size of the pan, it's really for anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 people. But if you have a larger, maybe a casserole dish or something, I have a larger size than this, a double size that I'll use when I have family and friends over. So this is our New Mexico red chili sauce, and I'm going to put a link toward the end of the video on this, where you can find the video where I make it, because it's highly worth taking a look. And what we want to do here is I'm just going to coat the top of the enchiladas, and I don't want them in a tub full of red chili sauce, so I'm not pouring that much to where you're really just filling up the entire pan. What I want to do is just make sure we have a nice layer on top and covering each of these enchiladas perfectly. And then I'll just take a spatula, spread things out to where you don't have too much chili in one area and not enough in another. And this will help from any one of them getting too dry. Perfect. And this chili sauce is so good. Highly recommend making it fresh. And so now we're going to add our cheese on top, and we're getting very close to being done here. What we're going to do is have our oven preheated to about 375, and I like to cook these for about 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And they should come out cheese melted, got a little bit of a sizzle going, hot, just smells amazing. And so I'm going to plate and get at least 3 of these enchiladas on my plate. I usually like to do about 3 or 4. I can eat so many of these, and they make wonderful leftovers as well. But traditionally, the way I like to eat it, and one you'll find in a lot of New Mexican restaurants, is sometimes they'll offer an egg, and I like putting a fried egg. In fact, 2 fried eggs on top of mine. Absolutely wonderful, delicious. Highly recommend it, but if you're not into eggs, no worries, you don't have to put the egg. And I also like a side of beans, but you can do Spanish rice. And then traditionally a little bit of lettuce and tomato adds a nice fresh tone to the meal. And so what I like to do is cut them up here. And if I can get a bite that incorporates some of the egg, some of the rolled enchilada, a little bit of beans, a little bit of lettuce, kind of everything, it's kind of the perfect bite. But I recommend trying everything separate first and see how it all tastes, and then giving it a mix to where you're getting several different things from your plate on one bite. Absolutely delicious, everyone. Hope you try it. Here is the link to the New Mexico red chili sauce. So if you're interested, I highly recommend watching that video as well. Thanks, everybody. Catch you on the next one.